So I talk a lot about where we should spend our time when we're prepping our D&D games. What kind of things do we want to bring to the table that are actually going to have the highest impact? And there's lots of things we do. And I think it's a very valuable exercise for GMs to look at the time they're spending on the different components of what they're doing and ask themselves, is this providing as high a value as possible to the enjoyment of the game, to my friends and I sitting around a table, whether it's virtual or whether it's physical, and enjoying the game? And so I wanted to talk about what some of these, where you get like the highest value for your prep time. Where is the bang for the buck? Now, this is actually kind of a hard topic because it's really, really hard for me to not just point at the 8 steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and say, there they are, right? You want your high value stuff? I spent a year writing it and they're all in there, and it's those 8 steps, and I've tested them myself personally for years, and many other people have used them and they have gone in there as well. But I'm going to try to take like a perpendicular look at it. So I'm going to try really hard not to just say, follow the 8 steps. Or if I am talking about one of the 8 steps, I'm going to talk about kind of a different way of thinking about it as this high value prep activity. But I think that this is, to me, the real core of like what it means to be a lazy game master, a lazy dungeon master, that you get more out of your RPGs by preparing less, not to zero, right? It doesn't mean that no prep is going to be beneficial, but you want to say, where can I put that prep? That matters a lot. I'm going to give you an anecdote. I'm not going to say who it is, but there is another author of D&D and 5e related books who offers advice books, who he and I were chatting on Discord just today. He knows who he is. And he mentioned that he happened to be at a gaming convention and he was talking about using some of the Forge of Foes stuff there. And he was thinking about it a lot. And then he talked about it a lot and thought about it a lot. Then he went there and he came back and said, yeah, it turned out they went in a whole different direction. They ended up kicking the room and killing the bad guy without facing all those people. And I thought, like, this is somebody who's got at least four books written about monster tactics. And you know, and I'm not knocking him, right? He knows, but it was interesting to me that somebody who's written all this stuff and talking about it and really, it was like, yeah, they went in a different direction. And I think that that's something that GMs who have been doing it forever and GMs that are just starting now, we all face that same thing of we prepped a whole lot of stuff that we thought it was going to go one way and it went another way. And that's kind of a core thing we need to grab onto when we're thinking about how to prep our games. And it's also scary because it's nearly limitless in what we could be preparing for. We could be doing all kinds of stuff. There is a near limitless amount of stuff we could be preparing for, and that's terrifying. You look into the void and you are terrified by what you see, which is nothing and everything. And that happens when we're thinking about a prep. We don't have a structure. I have said this before. I think the reason why Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master is as popular as it is isn't because it has the best system for prep, but because it has a system for prep. That it has a system that can work well enough that people have some lifeline they can grab onto and go with it. And I think that's why it's popular. Not because it's perfect, and certainly not only the book tells you can change things all over the place to fit what you need, but it gives some kind of structure. It means that when you're staring off into the void of nothing and everything, you have something that you can there's a line coming out that says maybe this way, and you go, oh, thank God, right? Thank God there's some way I can go. So that's kind of terrifying, but we have to think about where they go. And again, it's really hard for me to not just say, use the 8 steps, but the characters. Well, shit, I already failed, right? First one, focusing on your characters is almost always a great activity that's going to help you understand it. Now, there are times, I bet my friend who was at the gaming convention didn't know who the characters were and couldn't spend a lot of time on that. I've heard a new value. Here's a new perpendicular angle to this topic, which is you can also focus on the players, and you can think about it from the player's perspective of what kinds of things players typically enjoy. How do you think they're going to want to interface with this? What are the things they like? What are the things they're going to do? So that focus on the players of what they want and the beats that they're going to like. Even if you don't even know who they are, even if you're going to a convention and they're brand new people, you can still say like, well, what's the decision that they're going to be able to make in these various scenes? What are the kinds of characters that are going to have fun in this particular activity? I played a game where it was all like gambling, and I'm like, I'm playing a barbarian. Like, I have none of the ability scores. I have none of the attributes. I have none of the stuff that helps me gamble. What do I do in this scene? And the answer was stand on a wall, right? Stand leaning against a wall. Not a great scene. Everyone else is having a great time because they all had the right skills. I was an athletics guy. Nobody told me bring the gambler character. I'm like, I'm going to play a barbarian, right? And I had a terrible time. So think about who they are. When you do know some information about the characters, it's really worthwhile thinking about their backgrounds, thinking about the mechanics that they have. What are the things that the player likes to do with that character mechanically? So you can put those situations in there. This gets into lightning rods and things like that. Really put yourself in the minds of the players of like, what do they want from their character? What do they want from their background? What do they want from the story? But also, what do they want just crunchiness, and what kinds of activities do they enjoy during the game? Very, very valuable. Oftentimes way more valuable than thinking about what the structure of your adventure is going to be, because you don't know that that structure is going to follow the path that you're going to do. The hook. What draws the characters into the world? What makes them want to do something? And sometimes this hook, sometimes you have multiple hooks. Sometimes you have character-specific hooks. But what is it that's bringing them in? Again, I'm cheating a little bit because the strong start is also kind of like a hook. But I'm thinking about it from a perpendicular angle, right? What is the way that you're going to draw those characters in most effectively? And if you think about it from a hook perspective, there's kind of like 3 really good solid hooks that work well. One is justice, that somebody wants to do something right in the world. There's a wrong that has been committed and the characters want to right it. Somebody's been kidnapped, you want to go save them. An evildoer is doing bad stuff, you want to stop them from doing so. That is almost always a real good one. Vengeance is a strong one. We really hate this guy and we want to go after them. Or they did something terrible and we want justice for it. That can be one. Exploration is a really, really good one. Hey, there's this whole area that we've never seen before and we want somebody. Not always a fantastic hook on its own. Just the idea of going and exploring it isn't great, but going and finding an object or learning something you don't know that you want specifically, that can be a good hook. Money, treasure, gold. That's a good hook. It's a really strong hook. I remember I was sitting at a game one time and we were all going around the table. This is an open convention game. And everybody was talking about what, like, the DM asked, say, go around the player and talk about who you are and what you're looking for. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm from here and my sister got kidnapped and I'm trying to do this thing. Or I have been dealing with the city and trying to solve their problems. And there was this kid who's like, my name is Jarek and I'm here for adventure, and smiled. And we're all like, yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it? Like, we're here for adventure. And it's like the most open-ended generic interface. Something exciting is going to happen and I'm going to get involved. And it's like the kid knew it, right? He knew exactly what is that hook? What does it lead? How do you interface with the things that really draw characters in the game? I think is really important. The situation. Right? I talk about situation-based games. How do you develop the overall situation that you're looking at? What's the location like? Who are the inhabitants of the location? What do they do when the characters aren't around? And what are the characters trying to accomplish when they go there? That developing that situation and building that is a way more effective way, I think, of thinking about building an adventure than I expect scene A, scene B, scene C, and scene D to all take place. When you're thinking about the game as like a linear set of scenes, or maybe you have like a fork option of, well, scene A might lead to B or C, you're still kind of like narrowing it. But instead, if you say the characters are going to this place, they have a goal to accomplish, the place is laid out like this, and these are the inhabitants that are there, and this is what those inhabitants do when the characters aren't around. Now you have a dynamic situation that the characters can get involved in. It's not perfect for every single adventure, and there's certainly times where a more linear, straightforward, scene-based adventure is going to work. But when you can return to the situation, you're setting and spend your time building that situation, that has a lot of value because the players now know they can go in lots of different directions, and you're ready for them to go in those different directions. That works really well. The next adventure. When you're in the middle of running your game on the assumption that you have a game coming up, one of the things you want to prepare for now is putting the options out there in front of the characters about where they're going to go next. Now, sometimes you might have like a long section of adventure and you know where they're headed next, so you don't need to worry about this. But a lot of times it helps you to think about what are the 3 options that are going to come out after this. And this is this idea of thinking 2 horizons out. You have the horizon that the characters can see, and you have one more horizon after that, and that's what you need to see. You need to know where they're going to travel to once they've hit that next horizon, and you need to do it one game ahead. That's something I don't talk about a lot, but I think it's really important, and I think it's something I'm doing a lot when I prep my games, is thinking about what's next. Where are they going to go to next? What options are available to them? And it's important because at the end of the session, once they've done what they've done, you want to sit down with them and say, okay, here are now the quests that you have laid out. Which ones are you thinking about doing next? And even if they're not done with the current one, you can still kind of break character and ask the players where they're going to go to next. And that way you have an idea that even if when they finish this next thing that they're doing, I don't have to then ask where they're going to next because now I don't have anything prepared. Now I already know what plan they had to where they're going next, and then I can prepare for that for the next game. But you kind of have to think one adventure out, right? You have to think, sure, I'm preparing the adventure that I'm going to run for this game, but then I also need to know where this is headed to next. And a lot of times it's going to be what options are available to the characters, making sure I talk about that with the players so that they pick an option, and then I know where I can go with my next set of prep. So that's something I don't really talk about, but that's something that's definitely a high value activity. I know I'm not trying to just recite all of the 8 steps from Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, but secrets and clues. Secrets and clues are really, really valuable. I find them tremendously valuable. And I know many other people that have kind of taken that idea from Return and used it in whatever kind of prep system that they've got. The idea of what are the 10 things the characters might learn in the next session, regardless of where they might learn it, are really flexible. They're fast. They're small. They're pretty easy to do. You can usually do them in 5 to 10 minutes. And it gives you a lot of material to drop in front of your players to teach them about the world they're in, to teach them about their characters, to teach them about the storylines going on, to teach them the history of the locations they're delving into. You can teach them all kinds of things, and you don't have to worry about them going on one particular path to find it. You can drop those secrets and clues in when it makes sense, when they discover something in the game. You can decide, because they talk to this NPC, I'm just going to tag that secret onto there. Very high value activity, very built around the idea of improvisational play, because you're deciding in the game where you're going to drop it in. Lots of flexibility and just a really tremendous value. So the next time you're getting ready to prep for a game, maybe sit down for a little bit and ask yourself, look at all the stuff you're considering prepping and ask yourself, which of this stuff is really high value? What is the most high value thing I could work on? If I only have 20 minutes to prep, what is the thing I would prep for that 20 minutes that I know is going to bring a lot of value to me and a lot of value to the game when I'm running, and a lot of value to the players? I think that is a really valuable question to ask yourself and a good way of thinking about how you prep for your game.